Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. We have reached 1945, so it's the last year of the war. There's 2 turns left. Actually, there's only 1 turn left. I just finished a turn. So I'm going to go through this turn and show you what happened. And then I think on the last turn what I'm going to do is rather than go through the whole turn and then show you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you each nation as I go along, because I want you to see what the goals are for each nation. Like there's points that you get, right? So we'll take a look beforehand, right? Like we'll look at Germany before and then we'll show Germany's turn afterwards, see how successful they were in getting that. But anyway, let's before we do that, let's just find out what happened in the first half of 1945. So let's just go to where it started down here with Germany. Excuse me. Okay. Of course I forgot my pointer. So, Germany, as you can see, are in dire straits. The Allies have made lots of landings, and they're now, look, this is the Americans here. They're in Western Germany. Germany was able to buy, 20-something dudes that turn. Like they had 83 bucks, and so they were able to buy a lot. Like they've got tons of stuff on Germany here. And with the SS, they were able to put 7 SS infantry and 1 SS mountain infantry on Germany there that last turn, right? So they're doing pretty good. And they've got 5 guys here, 5 guys here, and that's about it. Like they got a bit of Air Force there. They didn't want to just pull right back. Like they didn't want to pull all their stuff back from the Russian border, because there's no points for them to get over here, right? Nothing that, like, they would like to keep what they have. Like they would like to have Western Germany back and not lose it. But I don't think that's going to happen. Not with the British and the Americans breathing down their throats, right? So that's going to be tough for them to do that. But they didn't want to give up over here either. It's not just that there's points for them over here. It's that there's also Russian points over here, right? So they don't want to give up easy points on the Russians by pulling all their guys back to Germany to fight on the Western Front. So, you know, like it might be a different story if there was no end date, right? Like if I didn't know it was going to end in 2 turns, then I might have played it a little bit differently. But like I was saying in earlier videos there, you have to play to the victory conditions, right? And so that's what they're doing. They're basically, with some of the points here, the further Germany is this way, the more points they'll get, and the further Russia is this way, the more points they'll get. Like I'll go through those in more detail here, but really what the Germans would like to do is get rid of these guys here and not let them back in, because I think there's a grouping of Polish countries in here, 3 of them. That gives Germany a point. But then there's all along the border here. If the Russians have all along that border, then they get a victory point. And there's other points as well, but that's basically some of them. I think also there's German points down here, like in the oil producing regions down here. And the most they can do is just get this one. As you can see from the last video there, the British came up and made landfall here in Turkey, plus they brought their units up. That's not much of a surprise. They were breathing down their throats. If they had one more turn, I mean, they could just trounce Turkey, right? They've got tanks and mechs and self-propelled artillery on the way there. They could really do a number on Germany, but they're running out of time, right? They've only got one more turn, and who knows, they might be able to take out Istanbul, but because they've got these 2 guys that can go in, and then this guy can go 2 spaces, so that might be able to happen, although it's kind of on the outside, because there is a factory there for one thing, and Germany can put 1 guy down there to try to help themselves out there. But again, though, like there is a transport here, so they can go and get a tank and bring it up. I never thought of that. But there's a coastal gun here, so the coastal gun can get a shot at that transport. But I mean, as far as if you're the British, though, you might as well try it, right? Because who cares if you lose that transport? You're not going to need it later in the game, right? It doesn't look like they could use the transport against the Italians here. The Italians did a good job of building up before they went to war. I still think they should have went to war earlier and been more offensive. But the good thing is that they didn't get kicked out of the game for being too offensive and then losing their capital, right? So the Russians, they didn't bother with many dudes down here because they need these guys to move fast. In fact, with Tankograd back here, there's only one turn left, right? So I toyed with the idea of just paying a buck extra for these things and putting them up here, but I wanted to get as many things as I could. And also I can try to get them down here. But it looks like Japan is going to get this 1 point for who has more here. The Russians were happy to just stop them here. They knew it would be too much of a drain on their finances to go after the Japanese because they would have had to bring more than they have here. So they were happy to just stop them. And Japan, they're not going to get any more points regardless of whether they move from here or not. All they need to do is have more units than the Russians do. And they do, so, or they should by the end of the game. And it's not here to here, it's on the border here. Wherever the Japanese border is touching the Russian border. And so the Japanese are going to win that fight, or win that point anyway, I believe. One of the things that I kind of, I guess I remembered it wrong. I've been talking about this point where if you have more capital ships in the Pacific for Japan or the US, then you win a point there, right? And then I went and read it, you know, because I wanted to read before this term began. I went and read everybody's victory points before I played them. And what it is you got to have twice as many capital ships as the other guys. So that's why the Japanese went and hit up there. So, like, they've got 4 capital ships up here, and America, once they put those 3 capital ships on the board, they're only going to have 7. So it looked like nobody was going to get that point. But then, you know, like, as I'm wondering, you know, what the hell can I do? Like the Americans, I spent a long time seeing if there was some way that I could attack these guys, but they just didn't have any forward offensive capability. Like, this was their forward offense. I moved them down here, but I mean, they're sacrificing 2 capital ships to maybe get 1. You know what I mean? So that wasn't going to work. But then I remembered this thing. Remember the American Minorities at War and the Code Talkers chip that allows you to go 1 extra space with 3 ships? Well, check this out over here. We'll just take this down to this side of the board. So I moved this capital ship here. I took the planes off. I don't need the planes. The planes can still fight in Europe. And I was able to move them back here. So there's a naval base there. Now, those things move. Here, let's move this over here like this. Those things move 3 spaces to begin with, plus the naval base, plus 1 extra space, so that's 5 spaces, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gets you over to the Pacific. It doesn't get you to the other side of the board, but this is the Pacific side, right? Once you get through the Panama Canal, that aircraft carrier getting there, that's 1 point. Just to get that aircraft carrier over there. And it's because I'm playing with that American Minorities at War, and I happened to draw that chip. So, how lucky was that, right? And the last chip I drew was this guy here. He's the Bushmasters. So it was had to go under a dude here in the southwest United States, and that's where that one went. So he's going to be inconsequential. Most of the units on the board are inconsequential at this point. It's just a matter of who can get the points. Now, the Japanese had a pretty bad turn. Like I showed you up at the top there in Russia, nothing happened up there. The Japanese went with everything they possibly could here because if they get this one and they have these two at the end of the game, that's a victory point for them, right? And so when looking at that, they had all of these ground units here, all of those straggler dudes who were going after partisans, and they had lots of air power, right? Like they've got all these planes here, and they had carrier-based aircraft as well. So they went after this, but the problem is that these guys had 7 tanks here, 7 tanks and 4 dudes and a self-propelled artillery and a fighter, and so they managed to get him down to where there was only 2 tanks left. The British had lost a fighter because of the first round of combat. One of the Japanese fighters got a hit, and so that's air superiority in the first round. So I had to lose that British fighter, right? Otherwise, like, they did pretty good. Like, they could have lost planes and kept their ground units and then taken that, but that wouldn't have done them any good, right? Because they need this space and this space, and there was another turn left. Like, I knew that there was another turn left, and that that wasn't going to be the end of it, right? So that's why I saved the planes instead of taking the planes off and leaving the ground units, because now I can still do it again. There's a couple of dudes there, there's a dude here and a dude over here. Like, this guy is actually touching over here, so there's those guys. Then there's also transports that can bring somebody down to Saigon, right? But the thing is also, even if they manage to get this, then the British and the Americans go after them, right? So they have a chance to take one of these back. All they need to do is take one of these spaces back to negate that point for the Japanese, right? And I think there's a point here and a point here, maybe here, definitely the Philippines. That's why the Americans came down here. Like, they're hoping to take out an island, and these guys are hoping to take out an island as well, right? But anyway, with the bad luck that the Japanese had, they went after the Anzac. Anzac had, where were they? Here, I can't remember. You might remember, because for me it's been a long time, but you might have just watched that other video, 1944, a couple minutes ago, right? And if you did, then you can remember where that Anzac fleet was. Anyway, so they went after the Anzac, and they lost the sub that they went after him with, and there was 2 or 3 battles in here anyway, with the Japanese going after the Anzac, and the Japanese weren't successful, and the Anzac hit them back. They managed to take out a destroyer here, and also they took out a couple of transports here, with this plane up here. Like, he was on this island over here where these planes are, because that's right. So that's where they were. So Anzac had a fleet here. They lost their carrier, so they were able to land the plane on the island. But anyway, that plane was able to take out 2 transports and then land. And they did that because transports can hurt these guys now. Like, we're talking directly about points now, right? And with these 2 transports gone, there's no way Japan can get back down to these islands now with any more ground units. And so the only thing they could possibly do is take out these navies down here. And they can almost do that. Like, these guys aren't that strong, the Americans, right? And definitely these guys have only got a cruiser and a transport. So I don't know if they're going to do that or not, right? But anyway, they are going to try for sure to take this out, and maybe to take these boats out down here. We'll see if they're successful or not. Nothing is going to happen down in Africa. Nothing did happen down here, except for one of the Global War heroes got on the battleship there, the French battleship, and went up here and took out Vichy France. The British had hit it first, but they didn't have many units, and they didn't roll very well. So they did take a couple off them, and then the French went in and dusted them off. they lost 2 infantry on the way doing that. So now France has every single one of their territories left, except for the island of New Caledonia and this island right here, Corsica. Germany has Corsica. So those are the only 2 French spaces that they don't own now. But they were able to get all their other territories back. And I didn't leave the Free French roundels on. Like, I didn't bother putting Free French roundels where the Vichy French roundels were, because with the capital being back and with Vichy France being gone, it's no longer Free France, it's just France, right? So, and what else? The Americans, they couldn't put, like, they've only got 1 shipyard over here, right? They've got 2 factories, but they've only got 1 shipyard. So they can only put 5 units on here, and there's the 5 right there, right? They were able to put a dude on this factory. But so what were they going to do with all that money that they had? Like, there was no point in buying more transports and more dudes over here, because they wouldn't have made it across the water. The last dudes that they bought and transports are already here, and these guys are going to be able to hit Europe, right? But these guys back here, if I'd have put some on there, they could have done nothing. So all I did was I bought these 2 planes here. They're going to fly over there, and they're going to sit on Great Britain just for show. You know, I had to spend the money anyway, so, and I didn't want to take a half an hour looking, okay, I could buy mountain infantry and this and that and something else. Fuck it, let's just buy a couple of big ass bombers. So that's what I did. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. So I'm going to come back in a minute and talk about Germany, and then I'm going to take the German turn. But because I want to read the card and everything, and be able to show you exactly what they could do and then what they did do. But then after that, like at the end of the German turn, I'm already going to be ready with the Russians. So when Germany finishes, I'll tell you about Russia, and then we'll take the Russian turn, and then we'll do Russia, and then talk about Japan, and then, you know, it'll just go on like that. So I will be back. Okay, so let's take a look at what Germany can do here on the last turn. Now here, I'll just show you this. I'm not going to keep this in front of you, but like here in this section here, everybody's card has that. And there are 7 victory points in total that Germany can get, but I've been reading through them, and they'll be lucky to get 2 of them. They could get as many as 3 or 4, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like, if the game ended after Germany's turn, that'd be one thing. But, you know, like, Germany can go and get in position to get those points, but then everybody else gets to take their turn after them, and they can try to deny Germany's points. Before we get to Germany's, though, speaking of such, like, you should take a look at everybody else's that are that Germany could affect. Like, there's the Great Britain over here, there's France, there's the United States, and there's Russia, right? So I looked at those other ones, and I don't think that, like, there's one that's called Contain Fascism for the British and for the Americans, and they each get a point if Germany and Italy are within their scenario starting boundaries at the start of the game. And that's not going to happen. Like, you just look at all these German pies everywhere, right? So there's no way that they could possibly get that one. So we're not worried about that. And that's really contain communism. That refers to, oh no, sorry, that's Great Britain. So that's the only one for the British that relates to Germany, and the same with the United States that relates to Germany. But with the Soviet Union, there's a few of them. So they could score 1 victory objective if the USSR possesses East Poland, Lubelski, Viperi, and all 3 Baltic states. So that's basically, that's all the way down the line here, but not Romania. I thought it was Romania too. But it's basically these 5 territories here. If Russia doesn't own all of them. So that's one point that you can prevent for the Russians. And I think that they are going to be able to prevent that, because if these guys and these guys take these guys, and hopefully this guy, then there's no way that the Russians are going to get this spot right here. There's just nobody within reach of them. I suppose this thing could come through here. No, he can't, because he can't blitz. This is a German territory. And oh, sorry, you can't. I just looked at my camera there. That's I was pointing at a Katusha there. There's no way that thing can go through this territory and into this territory. And this is a partisan. So a partisan's not going to be able to take this territory. So looks like the Russians won't be able to get that one no matter what happens. Any point that they could take away, like if any territory that Russia has that's worth a point or more, that they can take away, that will help take away a Russian victory point as well. So like this one here in Lithuania, if the Russians aren't using this one for this thing, then they could use this for a victory point, because this one is worth 1 IPP. So if the Germans can take that one and the Russians don't take it back, then that's losing a point for the Russians. And the same with up here, there's all these territories up here, right? But there's no way that Germany can get up there, because they can't get that far in one turn, and they've got no transports in the water. It's kind of a weird game how the Russians got that so easily, and then they were never challenged for it after that. So those are the and that's it for the Russians. So so basically they can prevent this point, and I don't think they have to worry about preventing this point, because the Russians can't reach it unless they didn't take this out. They need to take this spot out right here, and they would do themselves a big favor if they took this spot out. You'll see when we go through the German objectives. So they can get a point if they control Warsaw, West Poland, and this place here, I don't know how to pronounce it, that one, yeah. So this one, and this one. If Germany has those three territories, that's 1 point. So that's why it would be good to take this one and this one. Because, like, if they were to take all the units out of here and leave this one, instead, like, if this one stayed Russian, then this tank could go 1, 2 into here. He can't blitz, but if this was still Russian, then he could get through there. Like, if this tank leaves and these guys go, this guy wouldn't be able to go all the way through there, right? To West Poland. But anyway, if they can take out this guy and this guy, then they probably will get that point. Although, when you look over here, Denmark is like the British own Denmark, and the Germans aren't going to be able to get it back. So that means that they can bring their boats through the channel here, and they could land on West Poland if they wanted to. So that one's not guaranteed either, right? Another victory point, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. They're not going to get that one. That's the 3 Baltic states. They're not going to get that one. Denmark, Netherlands, and Belgium. They're not going to get that one either. Those all 3 of them are lost right now, and West Germany is in between them. West Germany that they don't own. Yugoslavia and Greece. Now there's a possibility, Yugoslavia and Greece down there, but there is this one transport in the water down here, and knowing that Germany could get a point, like probably what they should do is move this guy down here and move this guy over here. Those are mountain troops on mountain territories, and the only way they could get there is by amphibious assault. Like, that would help, right? That would help, and maybe get them that 1 point there. And then Bessarabia, Western Ukraine, and Belorussia. I don't think they're going to get that one. So this is Belorussia here. Like, even if they were to get through here and then blitz to here, then the Russians have these 2 guys. They've got these 2 guys. They've got their Air Force. They've got this. There's a global war hero back on Moscow there. So that one doesn't seem very likely to get this one here. Like, they already have this territory and this territory, but there's no guarantee that they'll hold either one of these, and it would be less likely to hold this one. So that's a point that they're probably not going to get, and probably shouldn't waste any resources going that far. You know what I mean? Like maybe not blitz. We'll see after, like if they do manage to take this and are able to blitz, then just see, right? Because there is another point that's coming up where they need money, right? And so those are the only groups that they can get, groups of territories they can get points. There's another objective here. It's called Eliminate Communism. It says score 1 victory objective if at the end of the game Germany controls Moscow or 2 Soviet cities. Now, they do control this Soviet city, but they don't control this, and they're not going to get this, and they're not going to get Moscow. They're definitely not getting Stalingrad. And there's no way for them to get Leningrad either, because they got no transports. So that one is definitely out. Gain resources. So you can score 1 victory objective if at the end of the game German income from territories and bonus income is greater than 50 IPP. Right now Germany is sitting at 46 IPP and 5 for a bonus. So they're at 51, but that's probably not going to last, because you look down here, this one is worth 5, right? And the Russians set up to take this one. Like they've got 4 tanks here, and they've got a couple of planes here. Like they know that this is going to give them a point. The Russians know that one's going to give them a point. That's why they set up this way, is because they were coming down here to get rid of this point. This is why you have to look ahead of time, not just, oh damn, I wish I was there. There's that one there. That would be $7 right there, because that's a bonus of 2 and it's worth 5, right? Now they could get this one back. This one is worth 4, Western Germany, but then it's probably likely that these guys are going to come in and take it as well, right? This one's not worth anything, the one that they want to get. This one is only worth 1. So, like they'd be hard pressed. They'd be hard pressed, pretty sure, to get a couple more dollars out of this, especially since there's so many other countries that are going to go after them. You know, all you got to do is take one German territory or another, right? And next thing you know, Germany's back down into the 40s. So that one's probably out. And then the last one was the Spanish Civil War. If the Nationalists had won, then they would have already secured that point. But the Nationalists lost weeks ago, literally weeks ago, when that battle was over. So there's no way they're getting that point. So maybe 2 points. Maybe the one for Yugoslavia and Greece, and maybe the one for these 3 territories right here. So we'll have to see how they do. Even if they manage, remember, even if they manage to get them right now, like they already have Greece and they already have all those territories. But if they manage to hang on to them until the end of the game, then they'll get those 2 points. And then they got an outside shot at getting the 50 IPP at the end. So we'll see. Well, that went pretty well for the Germans. They'd managed to get everything they were going after, except this one. But at least like there was a medium tank went after a small tank, a light armor. But the light armor was a guard unit, so it was +1. But at least it took it out. Like they both hit each other on the first shot here. And then the big fight here, the Germans managed to take them out in the first 2 rounds, so that meant that they could blitz. And they happen to have 2 Panzer Grenadiers here and a tank. And so I thought, you know what, I might as well blitz, because I also have a guy in behind here. So even if they decide to ignore these guys and go into here, that doesn't take out any of the German objectives that we were looking at. But at the same time, Now, Germany's got this one, and this one. If they were to hold those till the end of the game, that would be another point, right? So they've got this point now. They've got this point back here. They've got Yugoslavia and Greece. And what they did, I wouldn't normally do this, of course, but they did use these two planes in attacks, but they had enough movement points to get down here as well. So I thought, you know what, might as well throw them down there. They're not going to use them anymore. So make it harder for the Russians to take it out, because the Russians have only got these 4 ground units and they've got a couple planes. But I mean, their planes, they would have liked to have used them up here too, though, right? So force the Germans to, force the Russians to use them down here. So I think that was a good idea. Let me just grab this German card here. Anyway, so they were able to gain 7 IPP that turn. They gained 3 over here in Russia, and then they gained back here. And one of the things that happened back here, I think they only lost 1 unit back here. So that is going to be tough to take. Like, both of these guys are going to have to hit them, right? Even then, they might not be able to take them. But that might be the only thing they can do to try to prevent that point, right? The point where they get more than 50 IPPs. So, but that kind of takes the British away from thinking about coming in here and taking this one out, right? Because they need to come in here with the British in order to take out Western, because this one is worth 4 IPP. And with bonuses, what did they collect this time? 50, 60, sorry, that shouldn't be 60, it should be 50, 57. But one of the things I'm not going to add in that, because this is a house rule of mine, is the 3 IPP for the labor camps. The labor camps have worked out wonderfully in this game. I just used them. In fact, Germany tried to break out just so that they could try to put an extra dude somewhere, you know, that didn't have a complex. That would have been handy, but they rolled a 3. They needed to roll a 1 or a 2, and they rolled a 3. So yeah, that's been really, really handy. But anyway, they did pretty good. Right now they're sitting at 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Let's see if they can hold on to 2 of those. They did pretty good though. So now for the Russians, we kind of went over the Russians already, didn't we? So this won't take long. Now we know with the Russians that where's that? Here it is. We know they want to get. They can't get these ones now. There's just no way. Like, they could get this one, but they could not get this one. There's no possible way they could get this one. So that one's out. Worldwide communism. So they're going to score points for a lot of different ones. One of the things I forgot to do was buy an airborne infantry last turn. It wouldn't do me any good to buy one this turn because he doesn't go on until the end of my turn. But the only... Ooh, you know what? I forgot about that. Look at that. I've got the Global War Hero here that I can use. Yeah, there we go. Because anyway, they've got a transport plane, right? Now there's all of these open territories in here that all you got to do is drop a guy on. There's another point, right? This can go 7 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not going to work. So how about this way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. I'll look anyway. But if I can get this guy fly over to one of those empty spaces, then that's worth another point for them. They've already got a number of points for that, but they like, what is it? 12 is the most you can get, right? Eastern Security, so they're not going to get that one. That's one where who's got the most units over there on the border, and the Japanese have got more units than them. I don't see Russia being able to, like they could they could attack and then rail too. But Japan gets to go after them still, right? So Japan could still throw more units down there. So I think they should just give up on that one. And ice-free port. Now this one, they will get, because the Americans, like the Allies, are not allowed to attack them. There's their ice-free port right there in Portugal, right? Yeah, like basically what that one is if it possesses a naval base bordering the Atlantic, the North Sea, or the Mediterranean, or it possesses Crimea and the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits at the end of the game. So they don't have that, but they do have the ice-free port. So that'll be worth a point for them. So the Russians are going to get lots of points, right? And actually, they can use Vipuri in that too, because normally you'd use Vipuri to do the buffer zone, but they're not going to be able to use the buffer zone. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 points right there. And then if they're able to get one more, then that'll be the most, right? Like if they're able to fly this guy somewhere inland, then they could get the 12th point right there, plus the ice-free point. That would be 13. They're not going to get the buffer zone or the Eastern Security, but I tell you, that's an awful lot of points. That's probably more than enough to win. I think it'll definitely be more than the Axis. We'll see if it's more than the Allies. Anyway, let's see how Russia does now. Okay, so like the Germans, that went about as well as could be hoped for the Russians. So they managed to take this out with 2 heavy tanks left down here. You know, even if they hadn't taken it out, then the British could have come up here and mopped them up. There's no guarantee of that though, because they didn't. All they had was infantry down there, and they would have been attacking a mountain territory, right? They did have a commander, so the commander survived. They moved him over to Istanbul. What happened here? Oh yeah, so the global war hero got on the plane here, and he flew to East Poland. So that was handy. It's too bad they didn't have this territory here, because that would have given them another bonus, but there was just no way of getting that territory. But anyway, like they almost could have flown here, but that would have been the same thing though, right? Like it would have prevented these guys from getting a point, but it got these guys a point. And you got to remember, it's not just these guys against these guys. There's also the Axis the Allies involved. So getting the point is more important than denying the point for the Nazis, right? What else? Yeah, they were able to take this pretty easily. So that took out that point for the Germans. Remember, for these 3, that could have given them a point. And also, because of the amount of money that they took off of the Germans, they were able to knock down Germany to 39 points, and they've only got a 3 bonus. So there's no way that Germany's going to get that point. So right now they're down to 1 point, and Greece and Yugoslavia, that's 2 points. There was 1 point that I missed. I forgot I had these ships over here in Portugal, right? I'd been thinking about it earlier, but anyway, that's why they hung around out there, was so that they could go grab another point, right? They took this point off of the Italians, right? This is Sardinia. That's where the point. So that gives them another point right there. because there's no way that these guys they don't have a transport. There's no way for them to go out and liberate that. So anyway, they're going to have a lot of points. Now, I'm not sure if they should get the 2 points that are in Spain itself or not. So I'm going to look that up, see if I can find somewhere before the end of this game to see if I can find somewhere if they should get that point or not. But they may have more than enough points to win this game anyway, because they've got an awful lot of them. By holding this up here, I mean, this in itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 points here, 8, 9, 10, 11 without Spain. And then Spain gets them to 13, but they can only have 12 anyway. 12 is the maximum for doing it that way. So anyway, Japan. Am I ready for Japan? I haven't really been checking up on Japan because I've been concentrating on the Eastern Front over there. But let's just go through them. So, says score 2 victory objectives if at the end of the game Japan's total income is over 50, and that includes bonuses as well. And right now Japan is sitting at 51, and that's without bonuses. And Japan gets an awful lot of bonuses. Like every Chinese territory that borders the water there, I think there's 6 of them. Those are all bonuses. So there's 6 points in bonus right there. And then there's a few in these islands. I don't think that the Allies will be able to take back all of those islands there. Pacific security. Score 1 victory objective if Japan has Midway, Wake, Guam, the Caroline Islands, and the Marshall Islands, or twice as many capital ships as the Americans do, and that's not going to happen. There's no way they're getting that point. Asian security, score 1 victory objective if Japan has twice as many forces on all shared Japanese Soviet land borders. So I don't really know what that means, like if it just means on the border here, or if it means on a border wherever you're touching each other. If that was the case, then certainly the Russians should have moved up here, right? But if this is the border here, instead of this one back here, then they've definitely got more than twice as many. So they're going to get that point right there for sure. Raw materials, score 1 victory objective for Malay, or Hanoi and Saigon, or the Philippines, or Borneo, or Java. So up to 3 points for those. So I think that they could get one of these down here, either Borneo or Java, or the Philippines. They might get 2 of those. There's Malay down here, although unless they were to bring a transport down, let me see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they can reach down here with a transport. But they couldn't go to both. Like they couldn't go to Saigon. Well, they could. I guess they do have 2 transports. We'll see. Like they might be able to get all 3 of those, and then the one up top there, that's 4. And then it's actually 2 points if they're over 50 IPP. So they might be able to get that one too. But these islands are worth a good deal of money though. Like they're all 2, 2, 2. You know what I mean? So once they start losing these islands, if that's the case, if the Allies can get 3 islands off them, then that's $6. I still think they're going to be over though, because of all those bonus territories that they have there, right? So that's 2 points. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They might get 6 points right there, and Germany a couple, and Italy I think 1. So I think the Russians will have them beat. But we'll see what happens, right? I don't think that there's there's a point down here for the Anzac if there's no ships down here, right? No German ships, or sorry, no Axis ships in these islands down here. So if they want that point, then these guys are going to have to take out the Japanese ships. So Japan would like to make sure that there's a ship left in here, but there's not much they can say about it because they go, and then the Americans and the Anzac go. So they don't know if they can get that one or not. All they can do is try to leave some ships down there and see if that works, right? Yeah, so I guess we'll find out what happens. But I think I've had enough for today, though. I've already played two rounds plus the German and the Russian turn. So I think I'll wait till tomorrow and finish this video off. Hopefully be done sometime in the morning or early afternoon. Depends on when I get up, right? Anyway, I'll get back at her tomorrow. Okay, so I didn't touch anything up in Russia. I didn't need to because the Japanese have already got that point, right? What's next on the list here? Okay, greater than 50 IP income. Okay, they're at 60 right now, and so it's with income and bonuses. With bonuses, it's 74. So there's no problem there. I'm pretty sure they're going to get that. The British and the Americans are not going to be able to take 14 IPP off them, so they'll probably get that one. So that'll be 3 points because that one's worth 2. They're not going to get the Pacific Security one. That's a series of islands, including Midway and Guam and stuff. They didn't get those. Asian Security. Okay, that's the one with the land border with the Soviets. Now, this other 3 down here. So they did get Malay. They've got Hanoi and Saigon. They've got Borneo. They've got Java, and they've got the Philippines. So they got 5 of them. So really, what the British and the Americans and Anzac need to do is to try and take at least 3 off them. Like the British, what they can do, like they've got tanks and they've got a couple of dudes here. Unfortunately, their tanks aren't closer because if they were, they could have hit here and then blitzed here. But even then, it would have been pretty dicey. The British kind of ran out of gas here. If they'd had anything one more space closer, like even these mountain troops are a day late and $1 short. If they had been in Siam instead of Burma there, then that would have been a big help. But as it is, what I can do, there's 3 tanks there and 2 dudes. I'll take the 2 dudes in the tank over here and then 2 tanks down here. And I've got a strategic bomber here. I'm going to carpet bomb one of those 2 places. But I haven't been doing very well with the carpet bombing. So anyway, I can try to deny at least 2 of these ones. Because I don't need to take both of these out. I just need to take one of them. Because you need both to get that point. So I might be able to take those 2. Now, what the Japanese did, they didn't want to sacrifice their capital ships down here, right? What they were hoping was that America would lose one of their capital ships in order to negate that point for the Americans. Because what they did was they sent down everything they could afford to send down. You see there's more ships up there now, but that's because that's what Japan spent their money on, was a bunch of ships, a bunch of subs and stuff. But they sent down here what they could. They could have done a little bit better, although like right here you see there's a transport for the Anzac. I thought that was going to be a bigger deal, but I don't think it is now because they'd sent in a destroyer to try to take that out, and the cruiser and the destroyer hit at the same time, which left that transport. The destroyer here had taken out this sub, and this is what happened up in Hanoi. The Japanese only lost a dude, taking out 2 tanks and a fighter. So what they tried to do was block the Americans and the Anzac off. They put a destroyer here, and a destroyer here. So now it's up to the Anzac. If the Anzac can open up 1 or 2 of these holes here, I don't think they can get this one because of these. Well, yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna have to read the book, see if I could take these 2 out, if I'd still be able to go through these subs.
There's a case where you can and a case where you can't. I can't remember it right now, but I'll figure it out. But anyway, the Anzac do have these two planes, plus they've got three subs down here that can reach either one of these places here. One, two, three. Yeah, I can't reach those. Actually, you could reach those. So, um, it's not just a matter of denying Japan these ones, right? Uh, like you could deny them this one. The best case scenario would be that America could take the Philippines because that's the only original territory from 1936 that America doesn't have. And so not only would they take that point away from the Japanese, but they would also get it for themselves. And that's important because, as you've seen earlier, the Russians have got a ton of points, right? So you're not just trying to beat the Axis, you're trying to beat the Russians. So that'll be the goal, to see if I can get through these two subs if I was to take these two boats out and take the Philippines. But Japan did a pretty good job here doing that. They left a lot of boats back there because there's these subs over here, right? These subs can reach those capital ships up there, and with targeted hits, like with lucky shots, if I was to roll two ones, that would take out one of those capital ships there. So it's kind of a Hail Mary, but it could happen, right? But anyway, they put a lot of ships up there just in case I didn't roll ones, but I did get hits, right? Because then you're taking hits on capital ships if that was all that was left there. So just being on the safe side, Japan put a bunch of smaller ships up there. Um, and then they brought their other ships that they could use for blocking down here. So we'll see what happens there. They're definitely going to get a few points. The Japanese certainly did a better job than the Germans did in this game. Although, like, the Germans don't look too bad. It's just the Western Front that is really falling apart on them over there. So we'll see what happens after. Oh, let's talk about the British now. That's right. So Great Britain. Where are we here? Okay, so this has got all of them on it. It's got Anzac and it's got the FEC on it. So for the FEC, what we need to do is if they can take Malay back, then they've got all these things up here. Like there's a bunch of territories in here. If they can get Malay back, then that will give them a point. There's only 1 point available to the FEC. For as far as Anzac goes, they need to have all their territories down here, which they do, but they also need to get rid of all these boats in here, and I don't know that they can do that. I could send one or both of these guys on combat air patrol to try to take out those subs, and then take the subs up here and try to take these guys out. That might work. So I'll see, right? Then also that would punch a hole for the Americans to get up to the Philippines and to Borneo. Like they could split one ship off over here and take the rest of them up to there. So we'll see, right? And then as far as UK, Europe, contain communism, score one victory objective for each if the USSR has no land units in Eastern Europe or in Europe west of East Poland, and does not control the straits by Turkey there. So they don't control the straits, but this is East Poland here, and they do have that over there now. Is that considered part of Europe? I think it is, right? Um, Obviously, communism isn't contained if they own the entire Iberian Peninsula, right? But then, uh, is this part of Europe as well, right? Sardinia, because Sardinia, the Russians have Sardinia. So I don't think they're going to get that one, containing communism. Maintain the empire. Score one if they end the game with South Africa, Cairo, and Aden. Okay, they've got those three. There's a point for them already. And who goes after them? Italy. Italy's the only enemy that goes after them, and Italy doesn't have any boats so they're gonna get that point as well. Mediterranean security, they're gonna get that point. The only way they couldn't get that point would be if the Italians were to send their one fighter down here. Let me see, they got 1, 2, 3. Well, they can't land it anywhere. So yeah, they've got that point because they've got twice as many capital ships. If you have 0 capital ships, that counts as a half of one, and if you've got, and so 1 is twice as many than 0. That they count it that way. So that's another point for the British there. So they're not allowed to attack the Russians. So there's no way they could contain communism, even if they could get all of those land zones over there in Spain. I'll dig into that though, see if Spain counts in that, because that's a no-brainer there. If I mean, there's no way you could get that point if the Russians win, or if the Republicans win the Civil War, right? Because unless the Germans go down there and take them out, nobody else is allowed to, right? So anyway, we'll get on with the British turn and see how they do. Okay, so Britain and Anzac accomplished their objectives there. I spent some time looking through the rule book and reading. I think I got it right, but I don't really know. Like, I put these 2 planes here on combat air patrol into this zone, which gave me the ability to attack the 2 subs that were in there. If you remember, there was 2 subs, a destroyer and a small carrier with tactical bomber on it. And so I was able to attack that with 3 subs and then these 2 planes on combat air patrol. Now, it seems to me like the subs, they could have, I could have saved 1 sub there and declined combat and just submerged, right? I think I could have done that. And then what would have happened was, if the Americans tried to move through this zone, that sub could have engaged them. So he could have tried to fight them. But I mean, there's 2 American battleships there. They could have absorbed that hit and then kept going, right? If the Americans had if they had an aircraft carrier with planes on it, or if they had a plane on combat air patrol in here, which obviously they don't, then the sub could have made them stop and not move any further. So that's kind of an odd rule. So anyway, the Americans were going to be able to get through there as long as Anzac had taken out the carrier and the tactical bomber and the destroyer. I thought, I might as well bring these guys over, even though this isn't going to do much here in the end of the game, get that 1 point, because I couldn't take this transport anywhere else. I was blocked everywhere. It's not like I could have taken these guys out and then went to this territory with them. That's the whole point of having a blocker, is that you can't go too far. You can only go to that same zone. So I did what I could, right? And just, I don't know. I didn't have to do any rolling, so I did it. So anyway, now the Americans, they could get points now for the Anzac if they take out this thing here, this destroyer here. As far as points for Great Britain, they could, or points for the Commonwealth. If they take out this destroyer, then there will be no boats down here, and the Anzac will have their whole territory. Now up here, the British were able to take out one of these spaces. So they only lost a dude here and they lost a tank here. So because they got Malay back, they're going to get a point for sure, because Italy can't reach over here and Japan is done, right? Looking ahead at the French now, if they could have gotten this space as well, France would have got a point if they had all of their original territories that were worth at least a point. and so there's that one there that's worth a point. And there's no way I mean, like the Americans, could they? One, two. No, the Americans couldn't even get there because their transports only go 2 spaces. They're not at a naval base. Even if they were at a naval base, it would be an Anzac naval base, and you don't use your allies' naval bases, right? So there's no way that the allies are going to be able to get this point here for France. But what else for Britain? Colonialism. Oh no, that's Japan's. Japan's going to get that point for sure. So, contain communism. I don't think that's going to happen because of, I showed you earlier, maintain the empire. So they're going to get that point there. They have South Africa, Cairo, and Aden. Contain fascism. Italy and Germany are within their starting scenarios, are starting at the start of 36, which is a scenario we started on. There's no way that's going to happen. Like Italy might bust out for one thing, and no doubt Germany has all those pies there, which means that they're already out, right? Mediterranean security, so they'll get that point. So that's 2 points for them. And then preserve the empire, and if the Americans can get that destroyer, that'll be 4 points for the British. Now, as far as the French go, the French are up next. Actually, but before I do that, let me just show you what the British did there, and then I'll bring you back here. They did what they did down there. They couldn't really attack Turkey. Like, they only had 2 dudes and like, they got lost there now, but that's because they non-combat moved into there. Obviously, they're going to be able to take Turkey easily if this war would go on, but they didn't. So anyway, right there you can see Poland. So the British did manage to take this point off of Germany here. Remember, there was this one, and this one, which would have given Germany a point. And the British brought everything they could in there. Now, they didn't bother. The other thing they could have done was assaulted West Germany, and that's worth a lot of points, right? But the problem with that is that there's no points involved in that. And so they didn't do anything with West Germany. They just took off the point that they could. Oh, geez, you know what I didn't do? Damn it. Yeah, they could have used the transport there and gone up to Greece and tried to take Greece out. Oh well, lost out on that one. Anyway, so Germany's going to get that point, I guess. That's why you have to pay attention. So now, as far as France goes, let's put this down here. So France disarmed Germany, so they could score 1 point if Germany has less than 24 IPP in their territorial value. That's not going to happen because they're at 38 right now. There's no way between the French and the Americans that they can take off that many. I mean, the most they could possibly take off if they really did well was taking this space and this space here, and that would be only 7, which would still leave the Germans over 30. You know, like there's still way too much there that they needed the Russians to take off a lot of that other stuff there in order for that to happen. Eliminate communism. They're not going to do that because they have communists touching their border down here, and they can't attack them, unfortunately. If they could attack these 2 places right here, then they would, and they would get a point. Maintain the empire. That was the other one I talked about, where there was that point, Hanoi over there. If they could have taken, if the Allies could have taken Hanoi, that would have given France a point. So France isn't going to get any points in this game, despite the fact that they have everything but that Hanoi and New Caledonia and this spot right here, Corsica. They've got everything except for those things, and they're not going to get a point. One of the things they could do, I talked about Italy going in here to Switzerland, right? So one of the things they could do is they could bring whatever they have here. There's 2 tanks. There's a tank. There's a Global War Hero. And I wonder if this plane here will reach down here. So let's move this guy over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't think so. Medium bombers only go 5.
if it went 6, then that medium bomber could hit him as well. Yeah, they only moved 5 spaces, and he's not at an airbase. Too bad. Should have moved him. I don't know that I could have moved him last time because, yeah, I couldn't have moved him last time. This is the first time Francis had that territory back. Because if they could have hit. Anyway, I'm still thinking I might as well do that, right? Go with those 4 units in there and the leader, and this artillery here. Just go in there and see if I can hit 2 or 3 guys, right? Because those are the guys that are going to attack Switzerland. Now, I wouldn't do that if these Americans weren't here, because these Americans would be able to move up then, right? The American turn hasn't happened yet, so I've got to remember to move these guys up. Otherwise, Italy could go here and here, and that's 2 points for them, right? But so if I go with the French in here, try to take as many units off, and then move these guys up, then they won't get this one, and they might not have enough guys left to get Switzerland. That's all the French can do, so they might as well try it, right? Anyway, so we'll come back after that. I'll let you see if that worked out or not. Well, that was pretty funny. I did what I said I was going to do there. The French attacked, and they got them down to where there's only 1 tank left, like you see there. So there's only 1 tank. So now the Italians, oh geez, I never even saw that. They could attack here. Oh, but it doesn't matter. The Americans can take them back before the end of the round. Yeah, see, the Italians could have attacked here and taken this out, but that wouldn't do them much good because then the Americans could take them back there. Or could they? Yeah, they got 2 at 3, 1 at 2, and 1 at 4. Plus they could carpet bomb them. Yeah, they would get them back, no problem. So now to get Switzerland, they've only got the global war hero here. They've got a leader, and they've got, actually that leader, I rolled him. He's got to leave. So they've only got the tank, the global war hero, and the fighter against those guys in Switzerland. How many of them is there? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Tell you what, while you're here, this is the only thing the Italians can do. Why don't I let you watch me here? So we have, they're going into a mountain territory, and they don't have a leader, and so the global war hero isn't affected by mountain territory. So he's still at 4. That's a miss. And the tank is affected, so he's normally 6, so he'll be a 5. 7, that's a miss. And then we got a fighter, which is not affected by mountains, and he's a 6. Actually, no, he could be a 7 because he came from a territory that did have a leader, but he did get a hit anyway. So that's 1 mountain infantry down. Now they have 4 mountain infantry, and because they're mountain infantry in mountains, they're defending at 5. So all they need here is 3 hits. 1 hit. So that would be, I guess, the hero, right? He's the one attacking at the least. So now they've got, now we'll do the green dice will be the tank at 5, and the blue dice will be at 7. That's the fighter. So that's 2 hits. Oh, look at that. There you go. And then they've got 3 at 5. Ooh, no hits. Looking good for the Italians. So again, green dice at 5 and blue dice at 7. Miss. Ooh. Then 1 at 5 for the, nope. Again. Okay, there's 2 hits. Okay, so now the Swiss, they get 1 hit. So what that means is that these guys will have to lose their fighter, right? But the tank takes Switzerland, so that's a point right there. So that's the way this game goes. Like it's this last turn, it's been that exciting everywhere. Where it comes down to, oh no, will I get the point? Will I not get the point? Right? I don't know that the Americans can reach that spot. No, they can't either. See, this guy goes 2 here, but like this is not adjacent to this one right here. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I can see it here. It's not adjacent. And they don't have anything that can reach 2 space, or that can reach there from anywhere else. So the Italians are going to get that point there. So anyway, they go up 1 to 7 right now. All right then. So who's next? I guess just the Americans, right? So let's take a look at the American card here. And so the Monroe Doctrine, score 1 if no Axis or Soviet land units in the Western Hemisphere, so they're going to get that point. Contain fascism, Germany and Italy are within their borders, no. Contain communism, score 1 victory if worldwide there are less than 3 new nations or former colonies possessed by the Comintern at the end of the game. That's a solid no. Because like there's 3 right up north there, right? Pacific security. Okay, the Americans are going to get that one, because all they have to do is they have to, with that thing, is sail that thing there 5 spaces, which they can do because of that chip that I showed you. We'll talk about that more later. Maintain the empire. Okay, so if they can get the Philippines back, then they'll get that point. And the last one is technological superiority. They do have that one. They managed to get that one, and we'll talk about that more later. So we're almost done this game. Let me just see if I can take out a couple of spaces down here. The Americans, they'd like to take this guy. They'd like to put a guy on there, and they'd like to take the Philippines, and then they have to remember to sail that capital ship over to the Pacific side of the board. So we'll be back. Okay, so America did what they needed to do. They forgot they had 3 subs up in Marshall Islands there, so they were able to take this one out with the 3 subs, and they lost a sub doing that. They did take this place out, which took away one of the points for Japan, and they took this one out, which took away a point for Japan and gave one to the Americans. Now, they didn't do anything in Europe, because like they could have attacked in Europe there, but it didn't matter. Like there was no points on the line, right? There's absolutely no points left there on the line. So there was no point in doing that. The one point that was left on the table in the whole last turn here was these guys here. They failed to come up here and either drop something on Yugoslavia or Greece, and there was no guarantee that they were going to get anything anyway, because they could have brought 2 dudes, and they could have brought this guy here, the Global War Hero. They could have put him on a transport as well, but they were attacking into a mountain territory, so that there was no guarantee that they would have gotten or prevented that point. Let's just take a look at this thing here. See, this is the code talkers, right? And this is the reason why. This is the reason why they were able to get this thing here, that carrier there, over to the Pacific side of the board. They were able to go 5 spaces with them, because that token there allows up to 3 American boats to go 1 extra space, and then you've expended that token. But he came from way up here, so he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that gave the Americans twice as many capital ships. So there's that one there. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 capital ships to 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's double. They need a double. All right then. I guess it's time to count up the points, isn't it? So we'll go to communist China first. It says here, expel foreign influence. So basically that means get everybody out of China, right? That doesn't belong there. And that didn't happen because you can see there's a couple of Japanese guys down here. So they didn't get that point. Inflame the revolution. Score 1 victory objective if at the end of the game the CCP has more land units in China than the KMT. Neither one of them has any land units there. They both have a partisan, but I don't believe that that's part of it. In regardless, they don't have more. So let's just here. Let me grab this thing here. So score 0 for communist China. All right then. Who's next? Okay, let's go to nationalist China. So there's, again, expel foreign influence. That didn't happen. It says reclaim China. Score 1 if at the end of the game China has possession of any 2 of the following. And I don't even have to go through that list because they don't have any of them. Defeat the communists. Score 1 victory objective if at the end of the game there are no CCP units left in China. Again, I don't believe that this guy counts, so I'm going to say that's a point. It's kind of disingenuous because there's no KMT in there either, but there's no communists either, so that's China. And China gets a point. All right. Who's next? Japan. Okay, this is going to be a little more difficult. Okay, so let's just move this over to Japan. Okay, so where are we? Colonialism. Score 2 if victory objectives if at the end of the game their total income is 50. Their income is 50 right now. And I did count everything up at the end, the Germans and the Japanese, because they're the only 2 that had that sort of thing. That sort of threshold, right? So I counted them up. I didn't check on everybody else. I just assumed, and I wasn't collecting money for anybody on the last turn because they can't spend any money anyway, right? So, but yeah, those guys did meet that. So that's 2 points. Pacific Security, they didn't get that one. That was where if they had a bunch of those islands, Midway, Wake, Guam, Caroline, Marshall Islands. Asian Security, twice as many forces on the shared Japanese-Soviet borders. Okay, they got that point. So that's 3 points for them. And then raw materials. Malay, Hanoi and Saigon, the Philippines, Borneo, and Java. They only got 1 of those. Remember they had 5 of them at the end of the Japanese turn? This is the only one that they kept, was Java. Because Borneo was lost, Philippines was lost, Malay was lost, and then they needed both of these in order to score that point there, Hanoi and Saigon, and they only got 1 of them. So that's 1 point. All right then. So that means, is that 4 in total? 2, 3, 4, yeah. Japan got 4 points, that's pretty good. 4 out of a possible 7. Yeah, I gotta watch what I'm doing there with the camera. Japan got 4. Okay, who's next? Germany. All right. I know Germany got at least 1 point because of the one that the British forgot to take off them. Okay. So 1 if they have Warsaw, West Poland, and Donau, blah, 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 blah. And they don't have that one because the sneaky bastard UK came in there and took that one off them. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, no, they don't have that one. Denmark, Netherlands, and Belgium, they definitely don't have that one. In fact, they don't have any of those territories. Bessarabia, Western Ukraine, and Belarusia. So, nope, they don't have that one either because these guys took that one off them. So that's these 3 territories. They have 2 of those 3. So they don't have that one. Yugoslavia and Greece. Okay, so they've got that one. So that's 1 point. So eliminate communism. They either need Moscow or 2 Soviet cities. They didn't get Moscow, and they've only got one Soviet city, so they don't get a point for that. Gain one victory objective if the German income from territories and bonus is above 50. They are at 38, and they have a bonus of 3, so that's 41, so they didn't get that point. And then the Spanish Civil War, they did not get that point either. So Germany, sad Germany, only got 1 point this game. They were looking good a while ago. Not so much now. Now, Italy. Remember just a couple minutes ago, Italy got that 1 point. Let's see if we can get down to Italy there. Okay, so Italy, expand the empire. Score 1 for each new land zone that Italy possesses at the end of the game that she did not possess at the start of the game. And Switzerland is the only one. I didn't put a pie on there. Let's put a pie on there. If Italy's going to get a point, we might as well mark it, right? Now they could only get a possible 2. Like they could have gotten that one and another one, but they didn't get the other one, so they just got that one. So that's 1 point. Mediterranean dominance. Score 1 victory objective at the end of the game if Italy has twice as many capital ships in the Mediterranean as the Allies, or they possess Gibraltar, Suez, and Malta. If a player has 0 warship, count that as half a ship. No, they did not get that point. Triumph of fascism. Score 1 if the Spanish won, the nationalists won the Civil War. They did not. So Italy gets 1 point. And there we go. So these guys got a total of 6 points. That's the Axis. All right. Let's go to who's next? Okay, the Allies. Let's take a look at the Americans here first. So, these here United States. Monroe Doctrine. Score 1 if there are no Axis or Soviet land units in the Western Hemisphere and no land zone in the U.S. country has been in possession of an enemy player during the game. Okay, so that's 1 point. Contain fascism. Italy and Germany are within their borders. No, that's not true. We know it. We just looked at Italy, and Germany had a ton of pies on the board. Contain communism. If worldwide there are less than 3 new nations or former colonies possessed by the Comintern at the end of the game, and Russia, like you look here, all these pies on here, they have a lot of them, right? So they're not going to get that point. So only 1 so far. Pacific Security, they have twice as many capital ships. Okay, we know that. So that's another point. That's 2. Maintain the empire. The U.S. is in possession of all its original territories as of 36. And they are, because the last thing they did was take out the Philippines, and that gave them back that territory. So that's 3 points. And then technological superiority. They need heavy bombers, jet aircraft, strategic rockets, and long-range aircraft. Okay, so jet aircraft, yeah, they do have that one. I rolled these ones earlier, and I was on the other side of the board. So this one here and this one here are at the end over here. So they do have those 4. There's the jet aircraft, the heavy bombers, the strategic rockets. What was the other one? Long-range aircraft, I believe. Yeah, long-range aircraft. Now this one, I wish they changed the strategic rockets. Like, strategic rockets go 2 spaces, and you have to put them on a territory that you want. So you put it on here. Ooh, look at that! I managed to bomb C-Zone 31. You know, big deal. Anyway, so that's a point. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 points for the Americans. Alrighty. USA, 4. Okay, let's go with the UK now. Actually, there's France. France is here. I don't think France got any. Okay, if Germany is less than 24, and that's not the case. Eliminate communism, not touching their home territory. Nope, that's not the case because of Spain down there. And maintain the empire. They almost got that one. So they need to be in possession of all the land zones that they possessed at the start of the game that are worth 1 or more points, and France is in possession of all French home country. So they're in possession of all French home country, but it's Hanoi down there that they don't have. The Japanese managed to deny them that one at the end of the game. So France gets 0. It's looking like the Comintern is going to win this game big time. Okay, the UK. So, contain communism. Okay, now that one they didn't get because of Spain. Maintain the empire. So they got that one with the South African Union, Cairo, and Aden. Contain fascism. Germany and Italy are within their starting boundaries, and that's not it. Mediterranean security. So they've got twice as many capital ships in the Mediterranean as the Italians. So that's 2 points. Preserve the empire. Score 1 victory objective if the FEC has possession of all land zones worth 1 IPP in India, Burma, Ceylon, and Malay, and they have those. So that's 3 points. And then South Pacific security, that's down here. They have New Zealand, and they have all of Australia, which they do. And there's no Japanese boats in these islands down here, which there isn't. These Japanese boats that are here are not in those islands. They're north of those islands. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 points. Okay, that's 4 points for the UK. So that's 4, 8, and 1 is 9. Okay, then Russia. Now, the Russians, I believe, are going to kick ass here because of all those territories that they own. Let's see. Where are we? Buffer zone. Score 1 if the USSR possess East Poland, Lubelski, Viperi, and all 3 Baltic states. So, they don't because of this guy right here. If it wasn't for that guy, they would. Worldwide communism. Score 1 for each land zone worth at least 1 IP that USSR possesses at the end of the game that it did not possess at the start of the game and are not scored as part of another Soviet victory condition. So the way I read that is that they could, in actual fact, count this one and this one, since they aren't using that, and Viperi, since they aren't using those to score, right? Otherwise, there would be 3 less points for them. But anyway, there's those 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13, so 12 points. They can't get more than 12 for that. Eastern Security has twice the number. No, that's the one with the Japanese, and ice-free port. So that means they got that ice-free port in Portugal over there. So that means that if I'm counting right, they have 13 plus 0 is 13, and so it's 13 for the Comintern, 9 for the Allies, and 6 for the Axis. So let's put this down, this pen. And even if I wasn't allowed to score these 3 points here, this point, this point, and this point, I think that I am, but even if I'm not allowed to score those points, that would still give them 10 points. And so that means a big deal, I guess, if you're going to get all of these territories up here and you're going to get Spain over there. So if you're Russia, if you get Spain and you get all of these territories, then there's no doubt that you're going to win this game because there just isn't enough points on the board for the other guys, right? Like I could have scored a few more points for either side, but none of them were going to get to 13. You know what I mean? A couple more for them maybe, but you got to remember some of those things were containing communism, right? And there's just no way that that's going to happen. So that's all of those. So let's just take a look at this. As far as the Global War heroes go, these are the heroes that went down. There's an American, French, Anzac, British, 2 Russians, 3 Germans, 3 Japanese, and 2 Italians. Not surprising that the Axis lost more because they're fighting more people and they're right in the fight, right? They were aggressive and they were attacking. And that's what these things were for attacking. Once they've attacked, then they defend it too, and so they're not very well at defending, right? So once they put themselves out there, it's pretty tough to save them after that. But I thought that these worked out really well. This is the first game that I played with them, and I'm not just saying that because I created this unit. I really like the way that these worked out. There's a lot of things that would not have been possible in this game that I just played if it wasn't for them. Like one of the things, one of the features about these, like they take on the features of all the best parts of all of the different infantry, the different types of infantry in the game. So they made amphibious assaults possible, right? That was one thing that they did. Because the reason they made amphibious assaults possible was because they were able to upscale regular infantry to Marines, like pairing 2 to 1, right? So 2 dudes would be upscaled by one of these guys. So that was made possible. But the other thing was that they worked like a mountain infantry as well, right? And so when you were going after, like this one here, these guys might have been screwed here if it wasn't for this guy. He actually got, I think it took 3 turns to get these. He actually got 2 or 3 hits in there because they don't go back, like they're not -1 because of mountains. They're not -1 because of rivers or cities. Like they're that good. They're heroes, right? They're well trained and they're the best of the best. So these kind of barriers don't stop them like they do with or slow them down like they do with the normal infantry. So I really like the way that those worked out. What else did we use? I didn't use the new convoy rating rules much because I'm still not totally convinced on the rules regarding submarines in this game. Not only that, but one of the things that turned this game in the direction that it went in was the fact that where's this ball? The fact that the Americans rolled so well when it came to upping their income. Like the Americans were into the war really quickly in this game. Quicker than I've seen in any of the games that I've played. And so what happened was there was so much Navy out here between the British and the Americans, and we're talking lots of carrier-based aircraft, that it just, even though the Germans had advanced submarines, like they were just throwing their money away because the Americans and the British could take them out. So what they did with their vast subfleet, rather than just taking out money and then getting killed, getting hunted, was they went after destroyers and stuff, right? They went after the British destroyers because the British initially when they were raiding bought a bunch of destroyers, and so there's hardly any British destroyers left on the board. So that's one thing that that fleet did do was kill all of those destroyers, right? Self-propelled artillery, I used that a bit. I didn't use any armored cars. I didn't use any tank destroyers, so I can't tell you about those. Tankograd. Okay, so Tankograd, I really like Tankograd, and I don't think that I don't think the reason that the communists kicked ass in this game was because of Tankograd. When you look here, I mean, this is I've seen the Russians do a lot better here, like where they've moved in here, right, by the end of the game, and the Germans are still in Russian territory. So I don't think that that was a determining factor or in the communist win. And you look back here, the Russians are in trouble here too. Like it's hard to believe they won the game. You look here, this
what you're looking at here is the total of all the Russian units on the board, except for there's a couple here and a couple down there, right? So it's hard to believe that they won the game, and that's one of the things about these victory conditions, right? Like if I was to look at this game objectively, I would look at it and say, well, Jesus, you know, like the Allies are just kicking ass, and you look at what they've got coming. You know what I mean? There's much more stuff coming than anything, right? So and the communists are hurting over here. So if the war were to continue past that point, like if Berlin were to fall and then East was to fight West, then the West has got a huge advantage on them right now, especially when you consider the Italians had probably joined them as well, right? So, but yeah, Tankograd, I really like that rule. I like the little thing that I got here off of Richard at Combat Miniatures. That was cool. And then, now that we're looking at these things, these were great. This, the labor camps, I really like the way that those worked out as well. Funny enough, you know, none of them were liberated. I think that was just good placement, right? This war ends at a certain period of time. If you were able to keep going, then Germany would have lost it. Like Germany, they've got 4 territories in here and they had to place 3 of them. So the one they didn't place was the only territory that they lost, right? Like if they lost this territory, or this territory, then they would have lost one of their labor camps. But they didn't, and I knew that, right? Like I knew that it would either be this one or this one that was going to be lost, and there was a slight chance it could have been this one if the Allies had come from the south. But if the Russians had been winning the war, and then the Russians might have taken one out here. But I was guessing that this one would have been the one that was going to be lost, the one on the Western Front. But anyway, I really like the way that worked out. One of the things that I like most is something that I've mentioned already, and that was the fact that when you did a prison break, you got to bring them to wherever you wanted, right? On your territory, on territory that you own. And so, you know, like a Russian wouldn't just come on here where you can put one on anyway, right? Like I was able to put them back here, you know, where I needed them. And so after I figured that out, then I started doing that on purpose, right? Like I wanted another American to attack in here, so I rolled 3 dice to try to get an American over there, and I think they got one of the 3, right? And so that was pretty cool. What else did we play with? The capital ship damage. I changed the capital ship damage, but that only pertained to these 2 ships right here. These 2 ships right here. So what I did, like normally what you're supposed to do is roll 2 6-sided dice, and that tells you what the damage to those ships are, right? But I don't like that rule. I've talked about that before. I just don't like it because, you know, like let's say those ships got damaged where they are right now, right? Like they're thousands and thousands of miles away from home. Like if I knew that there was a 12 damage on this regular battleship here, I wouldn't bother sailing him home to repair him, right? Why would I sail him all the way back thousands of miles home? Why not just scuttle him right where he is? Like if he's slightly damaged, then sure, take him back and fix him. But how do you know that, right? How do you know how much damage there is? And you should be able to check out your own ship. Like you can see how bad it's leaking, right? You can see that it's not steering properly. You can see a lot of things about it. And you've got divers that can go down and check underneath even. Like you've got all the time in the world to get back to your port there, right? So it just seems to me that having no idea between a 2 and a 12, you know, it'd be one thing if it was 1 6-sided dice, right? Then you could see that, okay, there could be a variation in how much that you would pay to fix that, you know, a little bit of variation. That's understandable, but a variation of 10 IPP, I mean, that's a lot of money. It's not just $10, right? Like that 10 IPP is buying you a whole division of tanks and a whole Army Corps of Marines, you know, like like that's a lot of money.
a difference between one ship, like whether or not it was damaged that much, right? So to me, that it doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel right. So what I did was, whatever it cost to initially place these ships, that's how much they had to pay. So like this guy here, he cost 7,666. So his cost would be 7. These guys are 5,555. So his cost would be 5. But they had improved shipyards. So if you were good at building ships, that stands to reason that you were good at repairing them as well, right? You had improved shipyards. So I made it $1 less if you had improved shipyards, which they did. So this costed 6 and this costed 4. It costed $10 to repair these 2 ships, and that's the only ships in the whole game that I used that did that. Medium factories was another thing that we used in this game. I really like medium factories. To me, it's a no-brainer that medium factories should be in this game. Like here's one right here where you get 3 units on a factory. It costs too much to put 2 small factories on and then only get 2 units, right? The costs are out of whack when it comes that way, and you can't build 5s anywhere. For $20, it's just not worth it, right? You would have to pay 5, 5, 5, and 5 to build one of those to put 5 things on. And by the time you finish doing that, spending all that money on them, it's just not worth it. So to me, these things, these are 5, 5, and 5. To me, those things seem like the right thing to do. You put a small factory on, so that's $10, right? And then for $5, you upgrade to one of these things. So you go from 1 unit to 3 units. And where that affects the game mostly is in Asia here, because there's a lot of factories everywhere else. Lots of factories in Europe. Large factories, small factories. There's factories everywhere over there. There's factories in Japan. There's factories over there. But over here, like from where I'm showing you here, right here, there are no factories. There's one factory at the start of the game in there, and that's it. And so you're looking at spending $10 just to place 1 unit. And you got to do that a bunch of times. And a bunch of different nations have to do that. And I think the costs are out of whack on that. And so putting down these factories here, where you can put 3 things down, to me that sounds about right. So I hope that they make that change. And even if they don't, I'm going to continue playing with medium factories in my game. I just think it makes for a better game. I think it's better when you can put units on the board, Otherwise, you're not putting any units on the board. You're having to put them on Japan or Calcutta or Cairo and transport them all around down here. And, like Asia is the most populous continent on Earth. And you can't produce any dudes there? I don't know, man. So anyway, those things, I like the way that those worked out. What else? Here, let's just take a look at what we've got here, what we played with. So we've got all these things here. Lead of the Soviet Union, yeah, like that one. This is the first time I played it. When with the guards rolls before, and again in this one, the Imperial Guards, I kept forgetting to roll for them. So I hope they do something for Japan there at some point in time, because I remember to use the guards. The one problem was that once everybody had a guard token underneath them, then there was no more tokens to be had, because everybody already had a guard token. You couldn't give them 2, right? But anyway, that one worked out pretty well. And the Elite of the Third Reich, I've played with that one before. Really like that one. I like the SS units, and I like the variation, with the guards and with the Elite of the Reich. I like that some units are more powerful than others, and I like that you have to do something in order to achieve them, right? Whether that, you've seen the game. Like there's just stuff you have to do. You have to be in a certain spot. I didn't get this until New Year's Eve, so halfway through the game. But I couldn't have placed these ones before that anyway, right? The Russian super weapons. This is an expensive one to get because it's Shapeways. You got to buy it at. But yeah, really good units in there. the American Minorities at War. That's always been one of my favorite things, and I did get that American point down there. Remember that there. So yeah, I like that. I like the fact that it's very historical, and it kicks up some of the units. It gives it's in line with the elite of the Reich and the Soviet Guards. You know, like it gives one for the Allies, right? Partisans. You know, partisans are cool and all, but the problem with partisans is it slows your game way, way down. You know, when you're constantly having to roll for them, it does make the game better, but when you're playing by yourself, especially, like if it was just me, you know, and I was just playing one country, I would remember to roll my partisans every time. But the fact that you're trying to do so many things on this board here by yourself, and then, oh shit, I forgot about the partisans, right? So this is a good one, but it is going to slow you down for sure. Doesn't matter how many people you play with, that's going to slow you down. The commander set, that's an absolute no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. The commanders you should always play with. You should get commanders for Axis and Allies. This is probably the best set there is. It's so simple and yet so intuitive as well. It's just it kicks your game up. I love it. Winter War, that ended so long ago, like that was a month ago or something. While I was playing this game, that was last year before Christmas. It didn't add much, I guess, because you know, I think if there were more players, it would have added more. Nobody lend lease to them or anything. The Soviets just went in there, and in 2 turns it was over. They rolled really well, and so I didn't really get a good sense of Winter War. This one here, Manchukuo. You know what? I don't get Manchukuo. It's down here. To me, I don't see the point. You know, you're replacing Japanese troops with Japanese troops. I don't know. I guess it gave you a few more roundels. It gave you another complex, and it gave you a couple more units. But I don't think Japan needed all that stuff, right? Like Japan was already tougher than China and tougher than the Soviet Union, so I don't know why they needed it. But anyway, a lot of people love it. Maybe I just need to play with somebody else who knows more how to use that, right? Like I said, when you're playing by yourself, it's really tough to remember to do everything and to learn everything. You know, how to use everything. Maybe I just didn't know how to use that set properly, but to me it just seemed like all you were doing was adding a few roundels to the game. I'm just getting these things off the board again. So that's what we did. I'll just move the camera over here. You can take a look at Europe. I guess it's just about time to wrap this video up. This video has gone a long time. Anyway, I really enjoyed this game. I learned a lot. I even learned stuff today. Like today, one of the things I learned was that you couldn't fly a fighter over a nation that had a fighter in it. I didn't realize that. I just played it like you do in Axis and Allies, where you could fly your plane wherever you want, as long as you didn't go over a neutral territory, right? So apparently you can't fly a fighter over another fighter. I just happened to find that when I was looking whether or not I could take those boats out in the Money Islands down there. When I was looking through all the rules there, I happened to notice that. But I learned a lot about this whole game. Probably doubled my knowledge of the game because I slowed right down and I took it step by step by step. And I didn't just assume something. Like if I wasn't certain, I'd go to the rule book. And when you're in the rule book, then you learn 2 or 3 things. You know, you don't just learn the answer to that question. As you're looking for that answer, you might find another answer or 2 or 3 answers. You never know, right? So I learned a lot about those. I learned a lot about those expansions that I just went through. I learned a lot. And as far as this game, I know a lot of people have been watching this series, and that's good because I know a lot of people are interested in this game and they'd like to try it. And I think that the way that I played this game and the way that I took my time and explained everything. You know, I think that gave the viewer, you, a really good understanding of this game. Perhaps this series of videos is the best understanding that you could get of this game that is currently on the internet as of putting this video out today. You know, like I've done rules videos and stuff like that, but I was really fumbling through those, and those are hours and hours and hours and hours to watch all of those. But if you watched this whole series here, you got a really good sense of what this game is about. And it was a pretty close game, like 13 to 9 to 6. Like there was no blowouts. If it wasn't for this up here, then it would have been a much closer game, right? Like if Germany would have kept a couple of transports down here, then would have been a different story, right? So gonna have to remember that as the German player. And that's the other thing that I learned. I learned a lot about strategy in this game, as you do every time. Like every time I play the game, I learn more. But maybe this game in particular, because of slowing down and considering all the different ways to do something. The Global War Heroes were really a game changer in this game because it made some things possible, things that weren't possible before. You know, like there was no point in taking two dudes across the water and attacking a mountain territory because, you know, it was you were going to lose, right? There was a very slim chance of you getting that territory. But because you could have thrown one of those guys onto a destroyer and gone with them, you know, that made all the difference, right? So that it kind of opened the game up a bit. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this series of videos. I think that you couldn't watch all of these videos without gaining a better understanding, as I did, of what this game is all about. And if nothing else, then watching all these videos would have made you make that decision whether or not to switch from Axis and Allies to this game, like I did. Whether or not to jump from Global 40 to this game. You might think, well, geez, that's just too much, you know, for the cost and for how much I need to learn. That's just too much. But you know, like at least you have videos that you can watch that help you. Like the videos that I watched were a big help to me. That was the Hilltop Pillbox and Panzer Penguin. And anything else I could find, any little video here or there or anywhere, anything that I could find before I bought the game, and while I was learning how to play the game, I watched all of it. But now that I've put out so many videos on this game, there's so much more. And it's not just me that put out more videos on this game, like Rank Carcass has now, and he's put strategy videos on, and Pillbox has put a little bit more out. There's just more people playing this game and more of it online. So now you can get a better sense of this game, but you can also learn how to play this game a little easier than you could a year ago when I started. So hopefully you'll learn how to play, and you'll invite me to your house, and you'll send me a plane ticket, and it's nice and warm where you are, and your sister-in-law is really hot. I'm there. Give me a call. Anyway, so take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.